Okay, so sensual othering is basically about the othering of women in a sensual way or in a sexual way. So it's part of it is objectifying, part of it is looking at them as inferior, unequal treatment, okay, any unequal treatment of their rights, of their preferences, okay, how they were treated differently. That's how othering of women happens, okay? Now, in two poems of Angela Manalang-Gloria, we have two specific characters, okay? Or we are referring to two types of women who are both othered sensually. Like what the title here, they were sensually othered based on their virginity. Okay, so virginity, that word, it's very taboo back then. If you say that word, it's very obscene, okay? Right now, since we're in the modern times, all right, it's year 2021, I don't know if people or some people still cringe when they say the word, okay? We don't know because it depends on how one is brought up. But we will see how in the 1940s, if you are a virgin, you're othered. And if you are not a virgin, you're also othered. Okay, and this is reflected on the two poems of Angela Manalang-Gloria, Soledad and Old Maid Walking on a City Street. Okay, again, Angela Manalang-Gloria is a poet, a female poet, okay, here in the Philippines. She's considered the matriarch of Philippine poetry in English. All right. Okay, so let's first look at Soledad. Okay, Soledad was published in 1940. This is a sonnet. Okay, so when you say a sonnet, it has 14 lines. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right. The first stanza is made up of an octet, and the second stanza is made up of a sestet, if it is a Petrarchan sonnet, okay? A Petrarchan sonnet is a sonnet written originally by Petrarch. Petrarch is an Italian poet who was famous back then, and he pioneered the style of this sonnet. And since we were colonized by the Americans, and the Americans were taking after the Europeans, so it was passed on to us, especially to the poets, our Filipino poets, the writing of the sonnet. And back then, your credibility depends on whether you can write a sonnet or not. Okay, so we will talk about the sonnet, Soledad. Soledad is, what happened to my screen sharing? Can you see my screen, guys? Tayo mag-
Yes, miss.
Ayan, okay, all right. Okay, thank you for responding. Okay, so the first stanza, that's why it's an octet, because it's made up of 8 lines. For those of you who want a copy of this is uploaded on the next time. Okay, so in the first 8 lines, you can see here, we have a rhyme scheme of A, B, A. Okay, let me show you how to do the rhyme scheme. Ay, ano ba yan? Pag tuwing nag-a-admit ako, bumabalik siya sa ano. Ayan, so di mo na ako mag-a-admit. Okay, so cried. This rhymes with pride. Okay, so you label this with A. A, and then A also, and then A. And then pain. This doesn't rhyme with cried, so this now becomes B. And it rhymes with vain, so pain, vain. So A, B, B, A. And then A, B, B, A. So you see that? Okay, so that's the rhyme scheme. A, B, B, A, B, B, A, depending on how it rhymes externally. Okay, they're called external rhymes because they are having rhyming words at the end of each line. Okay, all right. So just to give you a technical aspect of what a sonnet is. But now let's go into the content. All right, so let's read. It was a sacrilege, the neighbors cried, the way she shattered every mullioned pane. To let a firebrand in, they tried in vain. To understand how one so carved from pride, and glassed in dream could have so flung aside. Her graven days are why she dared profane the bread and wine of life for some insane moment with him. The scandal never died. Okay. All right. So here in this first stanza, in this octet, we see here the scenario. There was a scandal, and everybody's talking about the scandal. Everybody was surprised, shocked, okay? And they were talking about one specific person, a woman, because it says here, she. Right? It was a sacrilege, the neighbors cried, the way she shattered every mullioned pane to let the fire brand in. So when she shattered every mullioned pane to let the fire brand in, this is alluding to many different things, okay? She shatters the expectations of people. She shatters herself, okay, in the presence of love and in making love, okay? She shatters conventions. She shatters different concepts, different norms, okay? So there are many things to refer to when it says here, she shattered every mullioned pane to let a fire brand in. Okay, all right. So you can also look at this sexually. Okay, firebrand, talking about the man, and the man is an absent character here, and yet he creates so much damage to the she that we are talking about. Okay, and how do you know that there was so much damage involved? Because the neighbors were crying out that it was a sacrilege. So what is this sacrilegious thing that she was guilty of? Okay. So it says here, they tried in vain to understand how one so carved from pride and glassed in dream could have so flung aside her graven days, or why she dared profane the bread and wine of life for some insane moment with him. It is the fact that she went to bed with him, okay? So in other words, it's just that. They tried to understand why someone who was considered to be of a good reputation, carved from pride, someone whom they see as being the hope of her family, glassed in dream, could just easily not take this into consideration, her reputation, her dreams, everything, okay? And of course, the sanctity of the church's rule, okay? She dared profane the bread and wine. The bread and wine, this is an allusion to the church, all right, which specifically refers to the Eucharist, okay? And all of that she had to deal with just because she wanted one moment with him, all right, okay? And for everybody, this is some insane moment with him. They didn't think of it as something that she did out of love, something that she preferred and wanted with the man. And the man here, of course, wasn't being condemned or judged, all right? But it was only she who had shattered every mullioned pane, shattered everybody's expectations, shattered her life. Okay, it's just she and not the man. So that's how we can see that she's being othered here, because there is no mention of the guy also going through the same thing, okay? And the worst thing was that the scandal never died. Her reputation was never redeemed. She wasn't seen differently after that. She has been considered, she could be given different names. She could have been given the name of a whore or a slut, any names, okay? So that's the scenario in our first stanza, in our octet. And then we move on to the sestet. Okay, let's look at the rhyme scheme. We have claim, desires, flame, spires, well, hell. Okay, so claim, this now stands for C, and this rhymes with flame. Desires stands for D, and this rhymes with spires. So CD, CD. And then well rhymes with hell, so this is EE. C, D, C, D, E, E. So that's the rhyme scheme, okay? All right? Flame, flame, desires, spires, well, hell. C, D, C, D, E, E. So that's the rhyme scheme of our sestet, okay? All right, so we continue with what happened. Okay, so we know that there was a scandal. There was a woman involved in the scandal. Technically a woman and a man, but only the woman had been harmed, okay? Specifically her reputation, okay? So how did things become worse, okay? No one guessed that loveliness would claim her soul's cathedral burned by his desires, or that he left her aureoled in flame. And seeing nothing but her blackened spires, the town condemned this girl who loved too well and found her heaven in the depths of hell. Okay, so you could see here that aside from being judged for what she did, okay, she was also condemned for being beautiful, okay? They think it was because she was too pretty. Her loveliness, okay, had claimed this guilt for her, okay? And because of that, she was sought after by this man, and it was her beauty that put her into trouble. Okay, so imagine that. This time, being beautiful is also getting yourself into trouble. Okay, I mean, is it her fault to be beautiful? All right, okay, so, but no one guessed that loveliness would claim her soul's cathedral burned by his desires, or that he left her aureoled in flame. And because of that scandal, oh my goodness, the man, instead of supporting her, backing her up, protecting her from all this, he left her. Okay, he left her. So she was alone. She was alone, and that's why the title of this is Soledad. Soledad means solitary. So she was left alone on her own, especially because she didn't find anyone to take her side, because everyone saw nothing but this quote unquote crime that she had committed. It says here, and seeing nothing but her blackened spires, the town condemned this girl who loved too well. So it's not just her family, but the entire town condemning her girl. Okay, they all condemned her just because she had fallen in love, she made love, and she found pleasure, she found her heaven in what was considered to be sinful, okay, or in the depths of hell. All right, so this is the othering of our character here, and this was narrated by a bystander. Okay, so the persona of the poem is a bystander, maybe one of the townsfolk, talking about what is happening to this certain girl who was scandalized, okay, who was in this sexual scandal. Okay, so that's one. And then next we go to After 10 Years, another poem by Manalang-Gloria. And this time it's entitled Old Maid Walking on City Street. Okay, so now we have a very different person to talk about. We have an old maid. Okay, and what is this old maid doing on a city street? She's walking, okay, and how is she walking? She had a way of walking through concupiscence, and past the graces her fingers never twirled, because her mind refused the heavy burden. Her broad feet shoveled up the world. Okay, so this is just a quatrain, okay, made of 4 lines, okay, and this is free verse. This is not a traditional poem, so it doesn't have to rhyme externally. All right, so free verse, it could rhyme anywhere. All right, so this is written, or this was written rather, in the 1950s by Manalang-Gloria. And here we see that, again, a woman is being othered, okay, sensually, or regarding her decision this time to keep her virginity, okay? If the first one, she was condemned for giving up her virginity, this time the old maid was othered because she didn't give it up. All right, okay, all right. So she was ogled, and she was seen as someone who is shoveling up the world or being burdened. Everybody is thinking that this girl is unhappy. Why? Because her fingers never twirled. What does that mean? Her fingers never twirled. That means she never flirted. She never even deemed to seduce anyone. She never dared try to fall in love or to be courted, etc. Okay, and everyone was looking at her. Everybody can see her. She is walking through concupiscence when she's just minding her own business. Okay, but people are judging that she is unhappy just because she didn't give up her virginity, okay? Just because her mind refused the heavy burden. What is this refusing of heavy burden? What is the heavy burden all about? The heavy burden is the conventional vision or the conventional expectation of the society for a woman, which is you get married and then you get to have children and then have children or have a family. Okay, she refused this burden of being trapped in the convention of being wed to someone, getting married to a man, and bearing children for him. Okay, she refused the responsibility of it all. She refused all this, and because of that, she was looked at differently. She was othered. Okay, she wasn't she wasn't completely part of the community as one of them. Okay, she was othered because she didn't decide or she didn't choose to be a wife and a mother. Okay, so this is another form of othering wherein people have expectations of someone, and since the expectations weren't met, she was then looked at differently. Okay, and if you look at these two poems are both othering women. It's like it's a trap. There's no way for the woman to redeem herself. She falls in love. She gives herself up to the one she loves. She is othered. She doesn't do this, she's also othered. Okay, so here you can see how women were centrally othered. Okay, take note of the poems. One was written in the 1940s, another was written in the 1950s. Okay, so maybe now things are far better. Okay, all right, but back then it was very taboo not to fall under the conventions of a woman being courted by a man, and then the woman says yes to marriage, and then becomes domesticated as a wife and a mother, bearing children, etc., etc. Okay, so that's how the central othering happens. Okay.